Good morning and welcome to the Mindful Messenger Show brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Media Project. My name is Amanda Johnson and today we are talking to Lisa M. Arreguin about mindful songwriting and creativity. Lisa is a songwriter, recording artist, trained vocalist, and speaker. She holds a master's degree in human resource psychology from California State University, Los Angeles, and is the founder of Voice and Sound, a music company dedicated to preparing artists for the real world of music through one-on-one vocal coaching, artist development, e-courses, and workshops. With 20 years of coaching experience, Lisa specializes in developing dynamic vocalists in the areas of performance, interpretation, style and technique, songwriting, emotional and mental stamina, and artist branding. She uses foundational elements of spiritual psychology to encourage artists to look within and connect with their highest potential. Lisa lives with her husband in Southern California, and today they own Love and Laughter Music Group, a family-owned state-of-the-art recording studio and music complex, which also houses Reaching Youth Through Music Opportunities, a nonprofit organization that educates, empowers, and equips at-risk youth in music, technology, and the arts. Just a few things. Welcome, Lisa.
Hi, Amanda. How are you, honey?
Oh my God, I'm so excited to talk with you today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, a lot of what I want to talk to you about today is just all of the amazing divine timing that happens, the orchestration that happens, because I know, because I've supported you with the book, that how much of that shows up in your songwriting world and your own work. And so I'm excited to share that with our audience today.
Oh, good. Awesome.
And you know, we don't have 5 hours, but it's my show.
5 hours just might cover the topic completely, but we'll work with what we've got.
Yeah, and if we have to have another interview, oh darn.
Oh darn. Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share a little bit about the beginning of your journey. Like, what was it that compelled you to start sharing this message about music and voice?
In 1988, I got sick. I was 30 years old. I had a 5-year-old daughter, and I wasn't feeling good. I had a full-time job. I was running 100 miles an hour, and not feeling good took me to the doctor, who sent me to specialists. And I didn't have cancer, but I had things growing in my uterus, is the best way I can put it. And so I had a doctor tell me, who had no bedside manner really, that really said to me, you have to have some procedures done. Otherwise you have 85% chance of getting cancer in the next 5 years or so. And I remember just being floored by that. And it just blindsided me. And I had a moment actually after an outpatient procedure on the freeway, the 405 freeway. Sometimes you know exactly where you are when your life changes, right? And I asked God, I asked the universe, and I said, what the hell is happening? And I got a knowing that washed over me. It wasn't really a voice, but it was a knowing. And it really said to me, Lisa, you are not doing your music. And I remember thinking, oh, that's why. And see, I had put music off in my life. It was one of these things that, it bit me at an early age. And I was the only musician in my family, really. So my family didn't understand me, but I knew it was important to me. So when I got into my messy 20s, and it was very difficult during that time, I just put it off. It just didn't seem important. It seemed like I had to, make a living, raise my daughter, and all those sorts of things. So for me, that was a changing moment. And so that moment moved me to know that I had to do something. I couldn't rest on my laurels anymore. So I found at the time I thought I wanted to be a jazz performer. So I found a jazz piano teacher, and I had some songs I had written, and I shared those with him. And he told me, all he said to me was, I like them. I like your songs. And to me, that was like, the biggest confirmation ever. So it sent me on a 10-year journey of trying to get my music out there, knowing nothing about the industry, just being this creative person who knew that I had to do it. And I really did equate living with doing my music and dying without doing my music. So luckily I was good physically after that, but I was on a mission, and it sent me in a new trajectory. I think all of us have those moments in life when the universe will speak down to you and hit you in the head with a frying pan and send you on a new trajectory. So that's how it began for me. And so from that experience, I wrote my first song, I recorded an album, I met my husband, and I now have a recording studio, and my husband and I do this full time. So it was a big moment, a big changing moment for me. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's, I love that, equating doing the music with living and not doing it with dying. Yeah. Like, that sounds extreme, but not given your case. But thinking about our audience, I mean, how many messengers do we know who, either through music or art or books, like, it literally feels like if they don't do something horrible is going to happen.
Yeah, I call them disillusioned dreamers. When in your spirit that you have to do something that's important, maybe it was even the reason you were born, and you deny it or say, I can't because my circumstances won't allow me, and you have pervasive feelings of, low self-worth, or depression seeps in, and you develop some apathy, and you develop eventually a little, mild anxiety and depression, and it can go down from there. So we all know those people where you see that the spark is so beautiful, but they have somehow, squashed that spark in them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's and we hate to see that. I've known many musicians like that, super gifted, could change the world with what they do, but circumstances are tough, and I get it. Yeah, circumstances are tough.
Well, yeah. I think let's talk about that, because you and I met in 2010 when you were looking. I think maybe it was even before then, but I started working with you in 2010. Uh-huh. You came to my very first retreat. Mm-hmm. And let's talk about that, because that was just, that was one of those moments for me on the journey that is one of those directional moments that you're talking about, defining moments. Mm-hmm. We were sitting in the dining hall at Glen Ivy, yes, having lunch, and I remember looking at you thinking, oh my God, she's so frustrated. Right. Because
frustrated.
Everyone goes upside down during the retreat, right? And you were having your moment, and it was around, like, we were trying to figure out how to organize this thing. And it was like, so, you're an amazingly creative person. So that piece of, like, giving solid framework and organization to something is just not the forte. It's not the strength, right?
It's foreign to me on most occasions.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we're working through that. We decide to take a break, go to lunch. And I, for some reason, get inspired to share my introduction to my book that I was working on at that point. And then I start talking about the importance of hooking your reader. And I swear it was like the moment I said it, you didn't even say, see you guys later. You literally just, like, popped up from the table and ran back.
Right. I did, because you used the word hook.
Yeah.
This is my hook. And I went, hook. Oh, a song. Oh, a chorus. And then, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden the form came into play. Form and creativity is so important, because otherwise you just kind of like a spaceship out floating in space. But to start to put form around your creativity and your process or your inspiration is everything sometimes. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I remember the rest of us walked back to the guest house after we were done with our lunch, and we walk in, and you've, Post-it land, you have completely mapped the thing out. Right. And you were looking at me like, oh my God, look at this. And it was like the song matched, your personal story matched. I mean, it was for me, it was one of those defining moments, because I think it was the first time that I really saw what I'm calling the sacred code, like inside of whatever it is inside that person that has to come out through the story,
Mm-hmm.
and how aligned that is with what you're up to on the planet.
Right.
And it happens for all my clients, but for yours with the music, oh my gosh, it was so beautiful to watch. And there are times where I'm at retreat with people and they're upside down and I am upside down too, thinking, sweet Lord, I know that there's a divine code in here.
Right.
Because that's what I learned, through the process of working with you. So you go, let's talk about your motivations for actually shifting from the songwriting and music to the book. Like what sparked that?
Well, on my journey musically, I really was a vocal teacher for 16 years and still am occasionally. But I have other teachers now that are teaching my method. But probably 10 years into, maybe earlier, 8 years or so into teaching, I found myself talking my students to death pretty much, because I knew that they were sent to me for specific reasons. And I really do have a connection with everything that happens. I just consider it divine. I mean, we're all living this magical life. It's an amazing thing. And when you are in service in any way, I think God actually sends people to you. The universe actually just, hooks it up, puts something in their brain, and suddenly they're at your doorstep. So I would find myself asking people, why are you here? What do you want to accomplish? What is meaningful to you in your life? And we would discuss those things. So it started to move from vocal lessons to like coaching pretty quickly. So it dawned on me one day that I need to probably write a book, because I have so much to say, but I can't say it to each student as they come in, or I repeat myself a lot. So I think the book seemed like a logical move for me. I love books. I've always have. I spend my last, 2 cents in Barnes and Nobles usually. So I said, well, maybe I can take a crack at it. But I jump in the deep end of the pool sometimes. So I just said, let me take a crack at it. And that's when I found you, and I went to that retreat. And that was, 2010. So we're at 2018 now. So there has been a whole host of creative journey to get from the inspiration to do it, to have a calling in my heart to be a mindful messenger, really, and to share what I know, all the way till now. So these journeys sometimes are not certainly for the weak of heart. No.
No.
I'm going to challenge every bone, every muscle, every blood cell you have at different periods of time. But perseverance means really that the calling is stronger in you than the feeling of defeat. So, and I'm always having to readjust that, and to remind myself that there is a bigger world out here, that there is a bigger purpose that is kind of calling me to do this. I wouldn't have this calling in my heart to do it if it wasn't supposed to, manifest somehow.
Let's talk about this one story that you tell in your book. And I just freaking love this story, because it's what's happened to me on multiple occasions through this process. And so, I know that it doesn't happen for everyone, or if it does, they're not exactly awake to it. And so one of my missions through this everything that I'm doing, frankly, all the workshops and all of the programs and all of the TV shows, is to have people start to consider looking at the world as if it's always talking to you, always trying to support, always trying to give you the answer that you're asking, whether you know what the question is or not, right? Like sometimes we don't even have it articulated.
Right.
I was just in pain. I didn't know that, I needed to write a book. I wasn't asking what do I do? But a book was like the last thing that I would have imagined the possibility. Yeah. So I'd love for you to tell that story about the song that came before the producers did.
Yes. So I was in the middle of doing my album back in, I want to say, let's see, 1997, 98. And after I'd been on this 10-year journey since my directional moment. And I had already met the producer in the middle of the album. It was just another sunny day in California, and I had to go to the bank. So I pulled up to the ATM, and as soon as I pulled up to the ATM, a melody came, and it came with words. Now, being a songwriter, I knew that was unusual. Like automatically, one of the aspects of creativity is being able to step back and observe what you have just created. So, or what has happened. So I knew that this little melody associated with words was unusual for me. And the words were, it won't be long till I'm gone. Say my name inside the forest and deliver me a sign. And I thought this song, as I'm pulling the 20s out of the ATM, was about suicide, because that's the first thing that it felt like to me. So the words and the melody were coming so fast that I pulled the 20s out and I pulled into a parking lot, which is a very typical songwriting thing, by the way. I've heard this from many songwriters. Oh, I had to pull over and write things down. And I wrote this down, and I sang this little tune for probably a month. I sang it when I was doing the laundry, or I sang it when I was doing any regular chores or in the car. And I liked it, but it was haunting. It was depressing. And I thought, oh, well, this isn't going to be on my album. I have my songs for the album. So in any case, I'm at my producer's one day, and he says, oh, I got a phone call today. And I said, you did? He said, yeah, I got a call from a film company who just completed a film, and they need some music for it. And I said, well, awesome. Now, I absolutely love movies. So I thought, well, terrific. I said, can I come to the meeting? Like, that's cool. So it was a few days later, and the actress, the director, the cinematographer, they all showed up, and they're looking for a whole slew of music, but they really were nervous about the first scene of the movie. The first scene of the movie, which they showed us, because at the time they popped in their VCR in the machine. And the first scene was the scene of a candle lighting, and then the camera kind of moved around this bedroom, and it landed on this young girl who was taking pills while she was laying on the bed. And the director said, well, this scene is about suicide. She's trying to kill herself. So then I started laughing hysterically, and they were like, what's her problem? And I was like, well, I already have the song for that. And so we agreed to do some of the music, although the producer was not that happy about it because they didn't have any money to do this. And my argument was, I wrote the song before the people showed up. How is it that you write a song for the people before the people show up to fit exactly in a film perfectly over a scene before you've seen it? And I thought that was a miracle. He wasn't so impressed. The music producer wasn't that impressed, but we agreed to do it. So at the wee hours of the night, because they were in a big hurry, we recorded this little song. It was just piano and vocal. And we drove it up to, no digital back then, so we drove it up to Hollywood to the guy who was editing the film. And he called us and he said, how did you guys write a song so perfect for the scene? Now, from the moment the candle lit to the end of the scene, the music fit over the scene perfectly. There was no editing involved. It was a perfect 100% fit. So I always marveled at how is it that I got inspiration that came down prior to what was needed. Like, it's as if there's a knowledge above and beyond us that is coordinating events that are happening to us, and as we connect and interplay with those people in our creative world. And so I have that as a story in the book because I really, in my attempt to define what is happening in the creative process is that I really do think of this universal connection as net love. I call it net love, and it's not internet. It's not an internet, word, but it is. I call it net love because I imagine that there are just millions and gazillions of strings that are connecting us everywhere all the time, to each other, to the universe, to the floor, to the air, and everything is connected. And so net love's job, I believe it is to remind us that we are all connected. And it is filled with perfect timing. It is filled with love, compassion. All the characteristics that we think of when we think of God or the universe are put into net love. And so net love is always working on our behalf, and it comes before us, and it moves after us, and it moves through the people that we know every day, all the time, every moment, every day. So even our moment here together, Amanda, is not by fluke. I consider it divine and beautiful and wonderful, and I'm always aware that net love is working on my behalf. And this is, in the religious community, this is considered faith. Mm-hmm. In the spiritual community, it's there's over 900 words for God, so we can talk about the universe, the gods of old and new, if you watch that TV show, whatever that TV show is. But I call it net love in a very generic sense, so to speak, because regardless of your belief, net love is always working on your behalf. It's built into the universe. I always say that if you have a plant, for example, and you give it sunlight and water, it will grow. If you put it in a dark room with no water, it will probably die, because it's built into this law is built into our living here as human beings. So we have certain laws, and net love is just law to me. It's just law. And so it just is. So anyway, that's the story of that. So I could keep talking.
I know. It's so good because, like I said, that was such a powerful moment for me at the retreat, because it was kind of the same thing that happened with you with that song, right? Like something comes in, it was already divinely orchestrated. And then I started to look at people's stories and their expertise and what they're trying to accomplish in the world and the journey that took them from there to there. And I started to see all of the pattern that's there, and you can't make it up. I mean, you just can't make it up. What happens, and like I said, for me, I love the fact too that you're not just a songwriter or a coach, but you're such a creative person in all the ways. I mean, what else have you done? Like the book, episodics, playwright, like you've kind of dabbled in all of these.
I think one of my things, and I know everyone's not like this, is to be super creative. And so I'm always trying to work with that energy. The energy of creativity means that probably every 5 minutes I have a new idea, which could devolve into mental illness if I'm not careful, because you get so fragmented. Most of us in our lives these days are pretty fragmented in general. We are pulled and pushed, and by daily things and family and work situations. But as a creative person, you are just always have an impulse to do something new, and you get excited. When spark comes in, you get excited about a new idea. And now I've come to understand that that I don't have to run with every idea, because it's impossible, first of all. And some ideas are better than others. And I have a slower negotiation now, is kind of how I deal with that. I get ideas, and then I may write them down. I love to write new ideas down, and then I revisit it later, so that I'm not, the racehorse out of the gate, 20 times a day. Yeah. So there is a negotiation about the creativity. Yeah.
Let's talk about that, the creativity and, you know, the challenges that come with it, and explore that a little, because I know you see it in songwriting, and you talk a lot about that in the book, which I love, but it wasn't just songwriting. It is for the creative process, and it's something that I witness my clients go through every time. You know, like my equivalent is the caterpillar craze for the spark. There it is. There's all this energy and action and magic that happens. And then crap, what is that? You know, this upside down moment of what do I do now? And so, what are some of the challenges that you faced as a creative as you were working on this book, as you worked on other projects?
I like to explain it and break it down a little bit so that it's clear for creative people and for mindful messengers. You are a creative if you're a mindful messenger. You are seeking to put something into the world that came from nothing to begin with, or a combination of mental, emotional, all pieces of yourself that pour into this thing that you want to do. So I consider mindful messengers to be definite creative people. So this is how I think of it. I think of, the Greeks in ancient times looked into the heavens and they saw the celestial moving. They saw the planets and the stars moving, and they reflected those movements into their lives on Earth. They developed crops and knew there were seasons. But particularly with music, they thought of that as the celestial moving in us. So if we think of creativity as going from a spark outside of ourselves as the celestial and moving into ourselves, and movement that happens here, there has to be a synthesis, a creative synthesis, to try to begin to make sense, to bring together the heaven and earth and move it together for us before it comes out to the people. I like to think of this, and I break this down in the book, as your creativity house. So your creativity house has 3 levels. You have your basement, which is a collection of all the things that you bring to the process. Your propensities for, in my case, music or writing or whatever the case may be. You bring propensities to your messaging as you go. And there's an energy to it. And if it stays in the basement and isn't moved up with this energy to the first floor, I think this is what we were talking about earlier, is those disillusioned dreamers who can't seem to get this energy to move up to the first floor of action. So,
or just forget about it and push it away because they're too busy, and then they get sick physically or mentally.
They get sick physically because everything becomes suppressed, and also they get sick mentally. Everything suffers in our spirit, mental, emotional, and physical, when things are suppressed. So it's like keeping a beach ball under the water. That's a lot of energy to do that, and it wreaks havoc on our spirit and our physical well-being. The first floor is where you get to play ball, get to have some fun. So the way I break down the first floor, and this is for creatives, is to think about the bathroom is where your emotional center is. So you need all of us, we need cleansing, forgiveness, let go of old things. We need water in our lives, inside our bodies, around us. That's why the ocean is such a powerful metaphor for creative energy, because it's emotional, it's emotion moving. We have our kitchen where we eat good food, where we exercise, where we are mindful of what we're putting into our bodies. We have our bedroom where we rest, where we dream, where we restore our energies. It's the place where that requires incubation. And in fact, the science of that is that creativity requires incubation times. So when you are in the middle of writing your book, or you're in the middle of, you're in a song, or whatever creative energies you've got going, requires periods of rest. In music, there's rests. There's whole rests and half rests, and that's required in creativity of any sort. So in your bedroom, that's where you do that. Now, also another room is your library, like behind me here, and like your beautiful books you've got there. The library is where we study, where we research, where we develop our skills, where we learn things. And that's an integral part of our first floor endeavor. I think of the living room as your creative manager. So your creative manager is your spiritual core. So let's say in your house, the lights are dim in your bedroom because you haven't rested enough. Your creative spiritual manager in the living room will say, oh yeah, we haven't rested enough. So it'll give you a little prompt to go, maybe you should go see the ocean, go up to the forest, or just get in bed for the weekend, you know? So I think that in order to manage your creative energies, you've got to take care of your first floor house. And you have got to become aware of where you are, what rooms have dimmed lights and which rooms are stronger. Because, you know, this is important. The energies are so strong, depending on your calling, depending on the importance of it in your life, that you have got to be aware of what's going on. Because if all the lights are dim on your first floor, the chances that you're going to create are dim. The chances that you're going to get that book done are dim. So as the celestial moves there in the heavens, it also comes down into your spirit, and you have to manage the celestial inside of you as things are moving. So I kind of break it down in that way, and that has been a little bit of my saving grace, because you know, and this is a daily thing. This is why daily practice is so important too. And what else was I going to say about that? Oh yes, the attic. The attic to me represents your lifetime of experiences. So when you are creating anything, you are pulling from the attic as well, because your unique voyage on the earth is your unique voyage. Nobody else has that, you know. I have a chapter in the book called The Clock on the Wall. All of us have a different even perspective about a clock that hangs on the wall. Maybe a clock fell off the wall and hit you in the head when you were 5 years old, so you're a little freaked out by them. Maybe you can't read digital, maybe you read digital clocks because the ones on the hand with the hands are a little difficult for you when you were 5 years old, 6 years old. Maybe your grandmother gave you a purple clock that's now sits in your bedroom, and when you see it, it means a lot to you. So we all bring to this creative endeavor our own spirit of uniqueness and perspective. That is in your attic, and you're going to be pulling from that all the time. So you've got your propensities in the basement, you've got your action floor, where you have to bring mindfulness and awareness to what you're doing creatively, and you have your attic, which is recording, actually. Net Love is recording, by the way. Mm-hmm. Every conversation you have, every struggle you have, every you know, joy you have in your life, and is registering to you as a library of collective experiences that are unique only to you. So your creativity house is a way, at least, to kind of break down those points for your creative.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's so useful to think about it in those terms. Mm-hmm. You know, so, and I love that piece about the attic being the place of storages, because that's where we put all of our old memories that, mm-hmm. you know, we don't have space for down here, but they're there. So for you, you know, as I've been watching you over the last several years working on this book, I've watched you, you know, through this creative process, and I watched you, you know, go through a lot of different potential ways of communicating the book, right? It's like, you know, we lay it out, and then the creative pops in and goes, but what about, or I have this idea, let me see if I can format it this way, or if I can format it, and it turns into, you know, it feels like it's even more chaos because we're not sticking with the original structure, right? Which is part of it, right? You're writing a song and there's this piece that drops in. You're like, oh, I didn't, where are we going to fit that?
Yeah.
And so I watched you do that. And I don't remember what it was that you brought to me when you finished the manuscript. I remember being like, can we please go with the music thing? And it was funny because you'd created this other framework, but it still followed that initial flow that we talked about, even though you were calling it all different things.
Right. Well,
we'll have that structure.
This is a testimony to having a coach. Everybody needs a coach because you don't know what you're doing until you know what you're doing. If I can say that way, you were very helpful, and a coach is important because your creativity likes looseness, loftiness, and lack of structure. It just likes it. So, but to get a book done, to get an album done, to write a song, to be a choreographer, and to have a finished piece that's presented to an audience, you will have to go through a whole host of ideas and throwaways. You are always puzzle making, and you really can't see it yourself usually. I mean, sometimes you can.
It's hard.
As you get clarity in sections of yourself, things will make more sense. But it really helps in the creative journey to have collaboration, and that would be a coach, or at least like-minded people around you that can help bounce ideas off, because you can't figure it out on your own. You cannot go on the creative journey alone. That is just the number one thing. If I say anything today, we want to do it alone because we think we can do it alone, but we really do need support. We need really positive, strong sounding boards. And I believe in having a coach to do anything that's important to you. So yeah, sometimes it's, where am I going to get the money for a coach? Where is a coach? So remember, you're never disconnected from net love. So anything that you wish to have, that you desire to have, has already been put out as a request to the universe, to net love, who is trying to respond back to you. So if you need someone to collaborate with, to partner with, you're now watching, audience, 2 coaches here talking to you about this very thing. And that's not by mistake either. So
Let's talk about this collaboration and coaching thing, because this is, I just did a workshop this weekend, and, I hear stories of people saying, well, I purchased this program to write my book, and I thought it was going to be this, and it turned into this. And, just a lot of disillusionment and disappointment and frustration, and frankly, financial fallout that happens when people don't have something. And that's what I want to like flesh out with you here, because I have my ideas about it, but I remember working on that chapter where you talk about collaboration and partnership, and who do you look for, and why do you look for this person, and how do you negotiate? So what are your thoughts about that would help our listeners make better decisions about who they ask to coach them and the process of collaboration and partnership?
Well, every step you take as creative people is a learning experience, no matter good or bad. But what I would say about this is a recent example I heard of this, which was, I think, very good for me to hear, and I want to pass on to your listeners. If you're going to take a trip across country and you've got a meeting to go to in New York from Los Angeles, you want to get on the plane, but before you get on the plane, if you start to engage into all the different things it takes to get from here to New York, and to get to that meeting, you can be fraught with worry, because your first thought is, well, I've got to pack and get to the plane at a certain time. Maybe I hope there's not an accident on the freeway so I can get to the plane on time. I'm hoping that how long is the line going to be in the security? Will I have something to eat to get on the plane? Well, you know, when I get on the plane, gosh, did I bring my pillow? Did I pack that? I forgot. I don't know. I've got to sleep. I'm exhausted. Will the person who's going to pick me up on the other end be there when they say, do I have their number if they're not there? You cannot, in any way, shape, and form, predict all those steps that are going to happen. They only happen in the moment. So what I would say to people about that very question about who to ask and how do I engage in this next thing, is that we really only have our immediate atmosphere to control. You know, I'm controlling my immediate atmosphere, which means I need to be in a place of emotional relaxation and comfort. Of course, you have to prepare and think, of course, about your how you'll market and things like that. But I think of this scenario about getting from Los Angeles to New York as that's what marketing feels like. It feels like, oh my God, did I think of everything? Should I do this? Should I not do that? And it's really too much. So I am of the position that it starts with you. What feels good to you is what your next step should be. You can't possibly predict all the things that are going to happen between here and New York or control them at all. So what I have to do is become clear in my spirit about what it is that I want to do next. Maybe I want to do two things next. You can't overflood yourself because it becomes too much anxiety, and then you offer resistance to the very thing that you wish to do out into the world. So I would say to people that are disillusioned that, you know, if you've picked some things that are wrong steps, that feel like wrong steps, they're not really wrong steps. That's kind of hard to digest at first because you paid thousands of dollars for something that didn't work. I get the pain of that and the regret of that, but really, Net Love, remember, is in your corner. It's weighing out all your desires. Your job is to look at your immediate atmosphere and to pick the next step, because Net Love already knows where you're going. It already knows what you'd like. So it's going to bring people to you. I have artists who ask me, well, now that my music is done, should I get a manager? And I'm like, no, you should not get a manager, in my opinion. You should let a manager find you. Because if you're doing your job as a wonderful artist with great music because you poured your heart into it, and you get out there and start just working it to just being of service with your music, a good manager will find you. Or you'll get several and you'll get to decide who it is I want to work with. So this is a negotiation, but it always starts with creating your own atmosphere, and it calms us down because we can't possibly know all the steps between here and New York. Mm-hmm. So that's my kind of long answer for that.
No, I love it. I think it's really important. And I know one of the parts that you shared in the book too was about when you're looking for different partners and people to help you build a song. You know, I look at it in terms of the book. But it is that piece of, what do I have right now? Like, these are my propensities. These are my memories. This is my action and mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And also I don't have everything that I need here. Like, I don't have the writing skills, mm-hmm. or I don't have the marketing know-how, or I don't know, harmony as well as, right? Because they have these different propensities. Like, maybe they're really good with melody, but not, right? Exactly. And so looking for the people who kind of balance mm-hmm. that out. So in the case of with my authors this weekend, I was asking them questions like, well, first of all, do you even know what you really need? If you don't know that you need someone with really good writing skills, and that you don't just need them to have good writing skills, but you need them to teach you, then that clears out a whole bunch of potential programs where that's not what they actually do.
Right.
Because they're working on this high level something, right? And so it's like getting that crystal. And I love how you did that with the music, because there's all of these different parts of music. And most of the time people have a propensity towards one or two, but not the others.
Exactly. You always need collaboration to finish a song. And I don't think a book is any different. I don't think it is. It's the same thing. You have, maybe you can, as a writer, maybe you are just wonderful at turning a phrase. Maybe you're terrific at telling a story. But then outside of that, you're just really lost. Well, you need somebody else to help you craft that and move with you on that. And it really does. I mean, in the music industry, I'm sure, and it's in the book industry as well. The people you meet in the room at one of your seminars, at one of your retreats, those people are valuable. And so as we come together in community and talk to each other and understand each other and work with each other, then we can move quicker toward moving outward. Because not only do our community members help us with the hard stuff, with the actual on the ground running stuff, but they also help us with the mental and emotional stuff. That is the blocks that we have. So they help us with that because, I may be having a terrible month and my grandmother's sick and I had a deadline to meet this book. And then you talk to your sister or your other author friend or your other musician friend and they'll go, look, it's going to be all right. I'm here for you. Let's get together soon. I want to hear how it went. All those things are so important because you realize you're not alone. And creativity, by the way, is a very seductive thing. And it's a very introverted thing, naturally. So we sometimes feel as if we can just do it by ourselves. We really don't need anybody else. I can write that book, that song, that screenplay. We don't need anybody else. I'll read a book or so and then it'll be done. But you cannot be further from the truth. You've got to get into circles, and you would be surprised at those wonderful relationships you make that become, acquaintances and friends, that if they're as steady as you are as moving out in writing a book and getting into the author market or writing a song, years from now, you guys will have Grammys and awards for your books, and you'll be able to talk to each other about the journey. These are valuable relationships that help you move along in the process, and you have to have it, I believe.
Yeah, I love it. And I think too that, I know one of the things that we talked about a lot through the process of writing your book is that piece of what happens to creatives when they are too alone. And when they're so alone and they're so into their creativity that they don't take care of all of those other rooms in the house. Right. And the mental illness and the suicide rates and we talked about all of those things, the Michael Jacksons and the Whitney Houstons and the stuff that just breaks your heart because these are, unbelievably talented people bringing these enormous gifts to the world. And yet they're so miserable.
You're so miserable. It's a very frightening thing to watch. And I think I say in the book in that chapter that I'm just so tired of hearing about super, super creative people who are part of the 27 Club, which is a 27 Club is a collection of artists, musical artists, and other people as well, who just imploded at the age of 27. And that's Janis Joplin and Amy Winehouse, and it goes on and on. So the 27 Club is a club nobody wants to belong to. And you don't want to even approach any of that. So you really have creatives. We all have a great challenge before us, and that is we're given all the things in our basement to handle, and that requires a great amount of courage, really, to move out into the world and to do some great things. But you have to do it with friends along the way. In kindergarten, when you go to the bathroom, you have to take a friend with you, right? You have to hold hands and take a friend with you. So we have to take friends with us as we move along this journey. Don't do it by yourself. It's not, it's a frightening thing. And you have to surround yourself with people who believe in you and who are your cheerleaders and who are honest as well. Be careful, because as your creativity glows, as you become bigger and better, there will be people who gravitate towards you who are not honest. And that's what happened Whitney Houston and all these terrible stories we hear. There's people that surround them that are not in it for anything other than their light, stealing a little bit of their light. So we're really in a good place, everybody, to be at the ground level of finding those people we can travel with and hold hands with as we go.
Yeah. And I've watched, I'm glad you brought that up about the bigger that you get, because it's something I see in the messenger industry too. There's like this moment that happens for people where they've done it, they've gotten there, right? And then there's the next there. I think this is why I love that movie, The Greatest Showman, so much, is because that is his story. Like, he goes from nothing to this, but when he gets there are these moments of decision that he makes. And I bring it up because I've watched other people make these decisions, and that is, all of a sudden trying to shut out the messy part of himself that he didn't want to remember anymore, and then, all of the friends that go with that, because they remind him of a place that he never wants to go again. And then he surrounds himself with someone who tells him something, literally the lyric of the song is a constant melody that is re-imprinting what he was told when he was a kid. And so he ends up losing everything. Yes. Because he literally walked away from the people who helped him get there. The woman who always told him that he was enough. Like, he walked away from all that, and then it just all burned to the ground. And I thought, what an amazing, again, divine timing, net love. Like, I'm watching this last night thinking about, doing this show with you today. And I'm just thinking, this part is really important, because the creativity, the net love that comes through the creativity is so beautiful. I mean, I look at your book, and I look at different books, and I look at movies and screenplays and musicals, and I just think, how does this happen? How does this perfect magic happen? I mean, there's this human element to it. You have geniuses who are there crafting the lyric, crafting the music, crafting the dance so that it's a feast. But there's that bit above that you just think, man, to be part of that is what a gift.
Yes. It's amazing how movies get made, because, you see the credits when they roll, and there's a gazillion people in those movies. Like, who coordinates that? That is phenomenal. I think, how did this movie get made, because it seems impossible from the onset. But when you get in the act of creativity, things begin to blend and move as they are, as we connect to each other. So that's I think how that happens. But yes, I think as you have to know that if you have a real impulse in your heart, you have a real calling to do your book, to write music, to dance, to paint, and it's a big call, it feels kind of big and important, and you get busy doing it on your first floor, eventually, you will get to a place of success. And when you have success, you will have a whole host of new challenges to meet. But the answer to that really is to stay grounded, to stay humble, to stay real, and to travel with your friends. I saw Jennifer Lawrence talking recently in an interview, and she's one of the highest paid actresses now in Hollywood. She travels with she hangs with her buddies from high school, and they're tight, and they're her sounding board. And she keeps it real that way. And they're goofy and they're funny and they hang out together. And so that's a bit of our saving grace as we travel on this journey, to stay humble, stay grounded, and to know that the universe has got your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
So good. I just really want all of the listeners to experience this type of magic, to understand that there are sparks coming through all the time, and they might not be sparks for your own creativity or your own, your own book or your own, but what if the sparks came through the other people so that TV show or the musical that you watched last night would give you information that you needed and you didn't know you needed it. You know, if we're like looking at the world that way, it's so much richer.
So awesome. You know, Diane Warren is one of the most celebrated songwriters in the world. With her, I think her catalog is worth over $3 billion with a B. She's written songs for everybody. She goes to movies and she sits and watches movies with her pad, because lyrics are condensed and dialogue is condensed because somebody's pre-thought about it and condensed it. So she goes with her pad. This is what I hear to be the case. So, you know, sparks are all around you and support is all around you. So my message to creatives is to calm down, to know that you have strength inside your spirit. You're going to have to sort out your rooms in your creativity house and get those clear and feel good about your life, but feeling good is part of the whole thing. If you get too frazzled, if you get too scared, then you have to pull back and you have to reevaluate and take a step at a time. There's nothing scary about one step. We become scared when we think about flying from Los Angeles to New York. So yeah, that's my, that's kind of the way I roll these days. Mm-hmm. It's always a challenge too, as well, for me, as anybody, is to stay within that, that sphere of comfort, happiness, calmness, and steady perseverance to do the thing I want to do.
And show them what happens when you stay the course.
When you stay the course, what happens is, okay, so my book is due out in July of 2018, and I'm very excited about it because it's been such a journey. And so I just got the first author copy in the mail, very excited. I cried, I read, I cried, and here it is. This is the author copy. It's called The Crazy Brave Songwriter, and it's a spiritual guide to creative songwriting. And I am happy with this thing. I actually painted the cover, and then the graphic designer person chopped it up and put it in on the front. So she designed the cover, but I actually painted. I'm into painting now. Who knew? Right?
Why not just add that to your repertoire?
Yeah, it feels good. So I'm doing that. So I'm really happy to announce this, and I've just got it a few days ago. And I take it to the kitchen. I take it to the bedroom. I take it to the, it's just always right next to me because I can't believe it's actually physical, you know, and it's not in a digital format right now. So very excited about that new thing. And I'm hoping it will bless people. I'm hoping that my prayer really is that what I put into it will resonate out. So that's my excitement about it.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Amanda, for helping me.
It's so good. The book is so good.
I could not have done it without you, girl, because in my creative brain that was running like the horse out of the gate, you're like, hey, pull back on this part and don't do that, and maybe you should try this. And I was like, oh yeah, right, okay. And it all began to gel over time. It feels really good to finish. Yes. Songwriters out there, by the way, finish your material. So we have too many unfinished songs in drawers that we don't do. So partner with people who know more than you do about certain aspects of your songwriting journey, and partner with them and finish. It feels good. And we'll help you move to the next step after that. Yes.
Okay.
Yay!
I have so many more questions, but we have to wrap it up at this point. We'll have to do another interview, but I do have my rapid fire questions that I'd love to send your way. Yay. So what was the first book or message that changed your life?
It was in junior high school. It's called Many Mansions by Gina Seminara. It's about reincarnation. I don't know why I think the spiritual thing has bit me first then. And I realized, wow, what if we did come back as other people? What if? And I read that book and thought, wow, and that book changed my life a little bit.
Yeah. I was laughing this morning because I was listening to the song from The Greatest Showman. There's a song From Now On at the end, and it has a bass drum and a banjo. And I was like bouncing around my neighborhood on my walk this morning. Right. And I came back and I was like, I think I must have like lived in the South in short time, because that stuff makes me want to preach. Like, I want to, like,
Yes.
I feel like I'm in church. There's something about that.
Got some good music down the Delta blues stuff down in the South. Good stuff, heartfelt, yeah.
What is your favorite book and why?
I think my favorite book, I have a couple. The Power of Now is one of them, and Marianne Williamson is my favorite author. Pretty much everything she's written, but A Return to Love made a big difference in my life when she wrote that back in the day. So I have to say A Return to Love, pretty powerful for me. So the spiritual books are what have touched me, and then Stephen King, of course.
That's a whole other episode. I'm not even going to touch that right now.
Right.
That's okay. If you heard the little text of the stuff that I'm thinking about launching right now, you'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. The different genres definitely provide information.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your beautiful gift that you have with our audience. And I'm so grateful to the listeners who are listening and joining, and hopefully, let us know what you're learning. Contact Lisa. Her information is going to be on the webpage. So get in touch with her if you're a creative songwriter. Even if you're a creative, go purchase her book in June or July, because seriously, it's not just for songwriters. It's any creative process that you're in. It will help immensely. So with that, I want to thank our sponsor, sitechisel.com, and remind you guys that they're offering a 10% discount for people who tell them that you came from the Mindful Messenger TV show with the code Mindful10. So thank you again, Lisa. That's a wrap for today.
That's a wrap.
It's a wrap, girl.
Thank you, Amanda. Blessings.
Too.